Hello and welcome to my brief presentation about the history of the Jews in Panama. 21 years after Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, Vasco Núñez de Balboa, a Spanish explorer, crossed the Isthmus of Panama and discovered in 1513 the South Sea, or what we know today as the Pacific Ocean. At that moment, the destiny of the Isthmus of Panama as the shortest crossing point between the two oceans was established. More than 300 years later, specifically in 1855, to facilitate the transport of goods and people between the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans, the United States finished the construction of the Panama Railroad. The California Gold Rush, coupled with the construction of the Panama Railroad, attracted adventurers as well as settlers looking for opportunities in the region. It was during these decades that Jewish families from the Caribbean Dutch colonies of Curaçao established themselves in Panama, later founding Kol Sherit Israel Congregation in 1876, which is still thriving today. In the 1890s, a sister congregation to Kol Sherit Israel was founded by Spanish and Portuguese Jews in the Atlantic port city of Colón, known as Kaal Kadosh Yangakov, and it held services until the 1980s when most of its members moved to Panama City and joined Kol Sherit Israel. After the completion of the Suez Canal in 1869, France believed that a similar project to connect the two oceans could be carried out with little difficulty, but they were wrong. The tropical conditions proved to be too challenging and the project was abandoned. After their failure, the United States sought to take over the canal project, but the government of Colombia proved difficult to work with. So, with the cooperation of French financier Philippe Bunau Varela, Panama simultaneously declared independence from Colombia and negotiated a treaty granting the US the right to construct the canal. Thus, the separation of Panama from Colombia was formalized in 1903 with the establishment of the Republic of Panama. By then, the Caribbean Jews of Panama had already adapted to the language, climate, and customs of life in Latin America. Having lived in the Isthmus officially for over a quarter of a century, they were Panamanians since before the inception of the Republic. In the following decades, migrating waves of Mizrahi Jews, mostly from Ottoman and then mandatory Palestine and Syria, but also from Morocco, Iran, and other Middle Eastern countries, they began settling in Panama. However, they arrived with no knowledge of Spanish, with humble origins and very different traditions. Being Orthodox, they had little in common with the already established community of Reformed Caribbean Jews. In 1925, the Mizrahi immigrants founded a Jewish congregation in Colon City called Agudat Achim. That congregation held services until the mid 1980s when most of its members moved to Panama City, where in 1933 another group of Mizrahi Jews founded the Shevet Achim congregation, which today is the most numerous Jewish community in Central America and the Caribbean. During and after World War II, Ashkenazi Jews from Russia, Poland, Hungary, and other Middle European countries arrived in Panama and established the Bethel congregation to follow their Ashkenazi rituals. They also established an Ashkenazi congregation in Colon, which was also disbanded in the 1980s when most of its members moved to Panama City and joined Bethel. In 1955, the first Jewish school was founded, Instituto Alberto Einstein, to promote a Jewish education and Zionism. Since then, more than half a dozen new Jewish educational institutions have been founded in Panama, spanning preschool through university level studies and the entire spectrum of Jewish religious observance levels. Rabbi Zion Levi, Zichrono Livracha, the Sephardic chief rabbi of Panama for an impressive 57 years, was born in Jerusalem in 1925, shortly after his parents immigrated from Morocco. Upon arriving in Panama in 1951, at only 26 years of age, Rabbi Levi played a pivotal role in building a vibrant Jewish community. He established himself as a sole Torah authority, preventing power struggles within the Orthodox community. He oversaw the construction of new synagogues in Panama City and worked to improve relations with the country's Muslim communities. By the time of his passing in 2008, the Shevet Achim community numbered more than 10,000 Jews, with circa 6,000 adhering to Torah observance. He is credited with building a thriving bastion of strict adherence to orthodoxy, and for his contributions to lifting the level of Judaism and the cohesion of the Panamanian Jewish community. It can be said that once the three congregations were established and later congregated in Panama City, they continued growing, organizing, and becoming more successful and influential in society in general. Many families started their own businesses and became pillars in the development of many sectors of the economy and industries, such as import and export, banking, and real estate. As a good example, Panama's Copa Airlines was founded by the Mota family from the early Jewish settlers from the Caribbean. Panama is not a country of immigrants. It has not experienced civil wars, famines, or big disasters, but it has welcomed waves of immigrants from neighboring countries suffering from these hardships, who are drawn to the stability of a peaceful country with a dollarized economy, high income, and historically low inflation. These conditions are reflected in Panama's tolerance and acceptance of immigrant groups, and each wave is welcomed and in some ways absorbed, and, and they help shape the idiosyncrasy of Panamanians. On the average, Panamanian Jewish community members are ritually observant. A considerable number observes Kashrut, Shabbat, Jewish holidays, Tzedakah, modest dress codes, and other Jewish customs. Despite its small size, Panama is the region's largest importer of kosher products. The community supports numerous kosher restaurants, several full-time shohatim, four bakeries, two cheese factories, two kosher supermarkets, one of which is said to be the world's largest kosher supermarket in the world outside of Israel. Although deeply identified with their community sentiment, Panamanian Jews are not isolated from the country's economic, political, and social life. Many Jewish families have achieved the highest levels of economic and professional success, traditionally as merchants, but more recently as lawyers, doctors, engineers, bankers, tourism entrepreneurs, and even government officials. Panama, apart from Israel, is the only country to have had two Jewish presidents in the 20th century. Max del Valle in the 60s and followed by his nephew Eric Arturo del Valle in the 80s. Both were members of the Kol Sherit Israel congregation, and each of whom was granted a state funeral held at the synagogue. In recent years, there have been Jewish congressmen Milton Cohen Enriquez and ministers Roberto Cohen Enriquez. Mayor Misrachi, a young entrepreneur and influencer, was recently elected as mayor of Panama City. Other members of the community have served in important governmental posts, such as legislators, diplomats, and members of different governmental authorities, including the Panama Canal Commission. Most Panamanians are Christians. National schools teach Holocaust Day, and there's an ongoing interfaith dialogue between all religions, currently led by Rabbi Gustavo Kaselnik, the spiritual leader of the Kol Sherit Israel congregation. So, while anti Semitism exists to some extent as it does worldwide, it's rarely concerning in Panama. Panama has been shaped by its geography as a narrow isthmus connecting both hemispheres and the two oceans, by waves of different immigrant minorities, and by the canal and its consequences in social, political, and economic aspects. And the Jewish community has been a part of it since the very first years of the Republic, even before that. In closing, the Jewish community, from its early exploratory days to the present vibrant population of about 15,000 in a country of only 4.4 million people, that's about 0.3% of the total population, has significantly influenced Panama's history and culture. Despite challenges, they've adapted to new environments and made substantial contributions to the country's economic and social fabric. The story of Jews in Panama is a testament to adaptability and the power of community, making it one of the most dynamic in Latin America. This is largely due to an enduring spirit and a noticeable commitment to preserving a cultural heritage in a small country of big opportunities. Thank you.